we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Holographic Health, episode number 10 we're up to now with Simon and Kate. And so welcome. And we're going to open up a discussion today around a couple of different topics. One of them being really about health and how we look after ourselves and how we view health as a priority or not with different other things in our life. And then also talk kind of leading on from that really about our hot topic at the moment, which is vaccinations with COVID, and looking at, again, that priority, sort of what do we prioritize, something like a quick fix vaccine, if that's sort of how you might view it. Yep, I've got the vaccine and I'm all good to go now. Or whether the priority is really about the immune system and being healthy and having an inner terrain that supports health and means we can go out and into the world and live our lives and know that we're completely capable within ourselves of healing and dealing with whatever we come across. And I guess really the kind of health priority thing is something that has been on my mind a bit lately, and just with a few circumstances that have come up that really got me thinking about what we prioritize in our life. There's lots of different things that we can think about in our lives, whether it's a comfortable home, the food we eat, the what we consider a treat. Because quite often sugary things are considered a treat, or cakes or chocolates that are not necessarily that good for us, but they're a treat, so they become a priority, for example, for something like a birthday. And the idea keeps coming up because I think kind of a way to explain it is for the last 12 months I've been on quite a different journey. I left a job that I was in that was a regular income every month, and I really had to prioritize what I was going to spend my money on and how I was going to live my life. And within that time, I've still been eating organic food. That's really important to me. My health improved considerably when I stopped eating foods that had pesticides or were grown with antibiotics or poisons or whatever it is that they use. And so for me, that's a priority. And a lot of people were like, well, how could you afford that? You're not kind of getting, doing the kind of work you were doing before. And so my response was like, really easily, that's a priority for me. And that's the number one most important thing for me, is the food that I'm putting in, but also the thoughts I'm thinking and the people I'm around. It's really important. And I've just heard over and over again comments about organic food or natural foods, not even necessarily organic, but unprocessed foods. And this conception that it's really expensive and that it's not possible. Yet on kind of the flip side, they may be people that might be going out drinking a lot on the weekends or going out for expensive meals and things like that, which is completely okay, of course. But it's this conception that eating organically or having really healthy things, even in terms of, products or soaps you might use on your skin or what have you, is difficult or not affordable. And that's just not the case. And when you kind of delve deeper, if you really want to do something, you can find ways to make it work, I feel anyway, within your budget or your situation. And Simon, I think you brought up a really good point when we were having a brief chat before, that if we maybe don't prioritize health and those kinds of things now, it's likely there'll be a cost later on in terms of healthcare or how we feel. So, and also how we're able to enjoy the quality of our life now if we put all of that in the too hard basket. So that's just, my first kind of thoughts on that. And I really liked, I'll save for some discussion from your side, Simon, because I really liked what you were saying about how there's a real sort of divide and a push, and things are sometimes cheaper with things like sugar and meats and processed foods. And yeah, I really like the way you explained that just before.
So yeah, so there's so much in here to unpack. You know, the idea of priority of health. Of course, there's what we eat, which is really, really important. But there's many other aspects of our life that are either contributing to our health or doing the opposite, you know. And I've used this analogy before, I'm sure, in one of our conversations, of thinking of our health as the balance of our energy account.
Yes.
So we are constantly either depositing into that account or we are withdrawing from that account. And as long as we're depositing more than we withdraw, then our account stays in credit, you know, and we stay healthy. So I think you started the conversation kind of predominantly thinking about food. And of course, that is a major part of this equation. So, and then the other thing that I think we need to kind of consider in this as well too is education and information. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there as to what is good for our health, and conflicting information as well too, which causes confusion. And then I think when people are confused, they can almost kind of feel like, oh, well, I give up.
Too much. Yeah.
It's kind of it is kind of too much. And if you look at the media and the, you know, where the money is invested in the media from, let's say, the really big players in the food chain, they're not really promoting organic and natural foods because the money is really in the mass-produced foods and the processed foods as well too. And these suppliers tend to be the ones that put more money into the marketing, into the billboards, into the TV advertising, etc. And then, you know, with all the best will in the world, if you know, if you're going to expose yourself to that kind of media, then you're going to be influenced by that at a subliminal level, you know. So this is where we need to take, and of course we use this word in every chat that we have, but we need to take a holistic kind of perspective at this, you know, because it's not just about what we eat that affects our health, it's the media that we engage with,
consume,
you know. Yeah, so yeah, that's exactly right. We are consumers, whether we like it or not. That's the way that our world has been constructed, that we consume. So we consume food, we consume media, and so we really need to be very mindful of this consumption. Yeah, so and then priority. Well, there's a saying that health is the best wealth, and I think it's you know, it's such a yeah, it's so important that without our health we really do not have anything. And although so much emphasis is put on what we accumulate externally and materially, and unfortunately maybe not enough emphasis is put on our kind of internal wealth, which is our physical, mental, and emotional health. And again, that's not necessarily as an individual, that's not our fault as such, but again, it's part of that programming, that subliminal programming that starts at such an early age and constantly gives us this promise that when we have this, then we'll be happy. When we have that, then we'll be happy. And so we grow up, with so much pressure to achieve these kind of external accomplishments and validations of our worth. So really then what this comes down to as well is, and this is a really important part of our health, is having that healthy sense of self and self-worth, that we don't need to look for validation outside of ourselves. And then when we have that healthy sense of self, we can make choices from that place rather than making choices from that kind of external pressure of what others may think or what is deemed to be successful, etc. Through the marketing, because I feel it's difficult for me because I live in Thailand, and I mean I live here because it was an ultimate choice for my health. It really, really was to let go of the 9 to 5, which wasn't 9 to 5. It was always 8 till 8 or whatever, and all those pressures of the kind of Western way of living. I did decide to let go of those and come here to lead a much less stressful life. The food here that's available here is amazing and everything, but so I'm trying to kind of take myself back into how it was when I was living back in the West. But as I remember, it was almost as if people like myself back then and like you are now, who are kind of like putting that emphasis on living a lifestyle which is a little bit more out of that kind of mainstream matrix, then people living like that are kind of ostracized a little bit and deemed to be a bit kind of weird or a bit kind of, you're either like some kind of like hippie or yogi, or, and it's so unfortunate that because I think again this has got a lot to do with media, because what the media loves to do is to kind of pit one side against another side. So we almost feel like we have to choose which side we're on. Are you a kind of hippie yogi, or are you normal? And so then if you eat, if you're into organic food, vegan food, whole food, whatever it is, you're kind of abnormal by default. And again, people don't want to be deemed to be abnormal. They want to, we all like to be kind of like accepted and part of the crowd. So I think this is a big problem that we have in our world today. And it's used in many respects, whether it's politically or with your one of the topics that we're going to get into hopefully on this chat is we're going to talk about vaccinations. Like you either are into vaccines or you're an anti-vaxxer. And this is all complete nonsense, because we live in a world of grayscales, and we're all to live in a healthy way. And this is what the Buddha taught, is we take the middle path with everything. Absolutely everything we take the middle path with. This is always the answer. So to be forced into one polarity or another polarity is by definition always going to create ill health, dis-ease, whether it's, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. So I would just kind of like really suggest with everything, whether it's our food choices, our exercise regime, the media that we engage with, the you know, what we do with our lives on a daily basis, we have to keep taking that middle path and choosing, taking, you know, a kind of moderate approach to everything, and that will give us our health. So it doesn't have to be all organic,
Yeah.
or all non-organic and processed. You know, there's a healthy balance in the middle, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, that's starts to kind of get into that conversation.
Yeah, I really love that you brought that up, actually, Simon, because something I've been working with therapists over the last 9 months on some specific things, and what came out of that was that I tended to have very black and white thinking. So it was a little bit all of that and none of that, or that or not that, and so that's been something I've been exploring within myself over the last 12 months, and really coming to this place of middle ground. So, and it's a much happier place to be, because it's, you can really, it allows two things to sort of flourish, or it allows you to embrace something new without necessarily neglecting other parts that you might still want from that other life. Or if you're kind of moving from here to there, you might not want to let go of one part of that yet, and that's okay, because you can embrace all these new different things you want to try and still keep some of that and kind of meet in the middle. And it just feels much more relaxing, and I guess it almost taps into a bit of the kind of shadow side of being a human too. We all have positive and negative aspects, and often if we try to ignore all the negative or the darkness that might be there, that tends to manifest in other ways. So it's sort of about allowing it all, allowing the painful emotions with the positive. It's
okay. Can I? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of bring that into the context of the conversation that we're having, you know, around health, and let's say specifically food, to say, okay, I'm going to be raw vegan and I'm only going to eat organic. Yeah. And then you get a craving for a pizza, let's say. What do you do with that craving then? You know, which is, let's say, the shadow represents the shadow, you know. What do you do with that craving then? Because if you keep suppressing that, you're going to find yourself in the middle of the night eating some junk pizza, you know, down at the 7-Eleven or whatever the equivalent is, you know. So far better to say, do you know what? I'm going to go for a pizza this Friday night. I know an Italian restaurant that makes the absolute best pizzas around, and they use the best ingredients, blah, 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 whatever. And because also what this gets into too as well, which is so important to consider in our health, is our emotional state, you know. So you know, far better to eat a pizza filled with joy and appreciation and gratitude of that pizza than to sit at home, you know, nibbling on a carrot, wishing miserable. You could eat a pizza, being miserable, going out in the middle of the night, buying a junk pizza, feeling guilty about it. Yes. Because all those low vibrational emotions of the misery and the guilt and everything are going to do you much more harm.
I agree.
Much more harm. And again, coming back to a much more holistic perspective on our health. And I think you were sharing with me before we started recording about some people, you know, that, you know, they have the financial resources to eat organic food, but they choose not to. And again, you know, it's about priorities there.
Yeah.
And whereas you, even in the last year, when you've been, let's say, technically unemployed, you kind of been choosing a different lifestyle, and your finances haven't always been as secure as they might be when you're in a kind of full-time employment. You're still making that choice for the priority, but I don't think there's a case of right or wrong in either of those scenarios, is there? It is about priorities. And if you're going to spend what to you is a huge amount on organic food, and you're not going to enjoy it because every time you like look at a carrot, you're like, oh my god, I could have spent that money on something else, then there's no point doing that either. And and vice versa.
I think
so sorry, yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Simon.
No, I think that's the main point, just to really just to continue what we're saying about not getting into any kind of polarized or pigeonholing ourselves into one camp or the other with anything in life, and particularly with what we eat, but allowing ourselves to flow somewhere within the middle of that, and always to be considerate of ourselves where our emotions are in that, and as we all know, our emotions change, at the drop of a hat. I know mine can anyway. And to be, to really honor those emotions as well too. And yeah.
And I just want to make a point. Sort of, it was coming up while you were speaking about kind of priority and cost and things like organic food and the like. And what I would offer in that space is really, if health is a main priority for you and you're worried about how can I achieve it or the cost or what have you, people like Simon and I, you can reach out to us and have a conversation about it, because we can help you in terms of where you want to go, and really, I guess, from a really authentic space of going back to that marketing thing that you're talking about. I do know you can go into a health food store or an organic store and everything's extortionate, and it's all marketed with very fancy packets with gold trims and all these kind of thing, and they are, I'm not going to pretend it, they're ridiculously expensive. And so if that is your experience and you go, oh my god, I can't eat organic, I'm going to go back to my supermarket and get the 50p whatever it is, that's sort of just kind of what's on the outside. But if you look underneath the hood, I suppose, and know the kind of people to speak with, or really want to make that a priority, there are ways that you can actually do that are very affordable. And I was talking to my friends the other day, and I had a delivery come, and their misconception was it was very expensive, but in reality, the bag of carrots was £1 for a whole bag of organic carrots. I got a huge broccoli for £1, and a huge bag of organic oats was like a couple of pounds. So actually my food shop was very economical and very affordable. It's just I'd found the places to go where the produce was accessible, there weren't fancy packaging, but it was, grown without pesticides, grown seasonally, and I know it's going to be good for me. And so it was just this aha moment for them too. They're like, oh, I didn't realize there was just this idea that it was for the elite.
And so the investment also isn't necessarily financial, is it? The investment is often time as well too. A lot of time really is money these days for so many people, unfortunately. So oftentimes food shopping is a one-stop thing, isn't it? Go to a supermarket, and supermarkets have been set up for that. Whereas you and I will go, I'll go literally to a specific shop for a product because it's either the best quality or the best price, or a combination of the two. So it's investing time as much as money into that. And just to kind of tie this back to something that you said earlier, which is so true, that I think if we invest, let's say now in the present, in both our time and our money, if necessary, into eating better quality food. And we can apply this to all the different aspects of the things that contribute to our health, but we're talking about food.
Yeah, it can be to any, it's the same concept.
You know, whether it's exercise or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. But, you know, the chances are that it will save us both time and money later on in our lives.
Yes.
In terms of whether that's in expensive healthcare and trying to recuperate our health, you know. And I'm a lot older than you, Kate, but, you know, we do get to a point in our lives where the body becomes less forgiving and we don't get away with things, you know. And certainly, you know, I don't have any regrets. That would be a pointless waste of energy to have regrets. But on hindsight, it would have been good to have done some things younger, you know. But I didn't have, you know, I grew up in an era where, you know, the word organic didn't even exist, you know, till I was like 40 years old nearly, you know, certainly not in the context of food. So I think these days there's less excuse as well too. The information is there, but as we said before, the amount of information can be overwhelming, and that's where, you know, people like us come in, because we've educated ourselves, both, you know, both formally through doing different kind of courses and stuff, but also through our experience. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to either of us or both of us for any guidance, you know, it's absolutely a pleasure. That's what we're here for, and to try to navigate through this, and, you know, through all this information. And, you know, in my experience, you know, working at the retreat here and guiding people back to health and detoxing people, there really isn't one size that fits all. There isn't one diet that fits everybody. And I think this is also part of the problem. And this gets people into this kind of duality of, well, if it doesn't suit me, it's either that or that, where, you know, in reality, it's a million shades of grey in between. And also, you know, what's right for me now today isn't necessarily going to be right for me tomorrow or next week or next month as well too. So then really kind of navigating that is something that we often at least need help with, just to kind of get going. And then what starts to happen is that it becomes a much more intuitive process.
And that circles back to what you were saying earlier. It's really about coming back to the self.
So for sure. So maybe I don't know how we're doing for time, but I would really like to just start to at least touch on this conversation of vaccinations, because it is a hot topic at the moment.
And we've got time. We've got about 10-15 minutes actually, so we've got time.
Okay, great. So if I may, I'll get that.
Yeah.
I'll get that conversation going. I know you've got plenty that you'd like to add, but yeah, it is obviously a conversation that is hot at the moment with the, you know, the ongoing kind of COVID situation. There's more pressure being put on people now to take a vaccination for COVID. And so I just wanted to share my understanding of vaccinations generally, and then kind of specifically with the COVID one. So, and again, this is going to tie back to what we were just talking about, because we don't have to be either pro or anti anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, see, I grew up in an era where we weren't given loads and loads of vaccinations, and certainly not until well into our childhood.
Yes.
And our bodies were given the opportunity to start to develop natural immunity. And this is something that a body will do if it's left of its own kind of devices. This is a natural part of being human. So, and what that often involves is catching some kind of illness or disease, and then the body deals with it. It develops antibodies, and then when it's confronted with that disease again, it's okay. It will deal with it.
Yeah.
So a classic one is chickenpox.
Yep.
So when we were kids, if someone got chickenpox, our parents all sent us round to that person's house. So this is the exact opposite of social distancing and quarantine. The exact opposite. And this is what we did, because our parents understood that if we got chickenpox, okay, we might be sick with chickenpox for a week or two, I can't remember, however long it lasts. But after that, we've got a natural immunity. And this is how we built up our immune systems as children. And I am extremely healthy and have an extremely healthy immune system. And the only vaccinations that I was given as a child were the kind of vaccinations that actually worked and worked with that principle. And this is what a traditional vaccination is. And we need to, just kind of get clear about that and compare it to some of the modern vaccinations. Because the word vaccination is only the process of doing the jab. Isn't it? It is the vaccination. So what I'm talking about is these traditional immunizations, which means that we were given a small amount of the the bacteria,
the virus or
or
whatever
it was. Well, actually, it wasn't a virus, because viruses are not contagious and do not cause disease. That's another conversation, but it is a pertinent conversation, but let's say a pathogen or a bacteria or whatever. So we were injected with a bit of that, and then our body would have a response to that and build up immunity. And this is nothing new. This is homeopathy. This is just taking homeopathy, which is 100 plus years old, naturopathic approach to medicine, and kind of using that approach. So in homeopathy, we take a tiny amount of medicine, a natural medicine, a herbal medicine, and then the body then in a way that reminds the body of what it needs to do. So that's how homeopathy works. So in a way, this is kind of working in a similar way by giving the body a very small amount, not a dangerous amount of a bacteria or a pathogen or something, and then the body will build up an immune. And so, am I pro vaccinations? Absolutely. If that's the method used, and that's how it works. Now, that's very different to some of the more modern vaccinations that are being administered, which are more for things like flu. Now, flu vaccines have been around for a long, long time, and this is where we get into the anti-vaxxers thing, because with things like flu vaccinations and some of the vaccinations that children are given as well, they're not working on that principle. They're working by actually manipulating a person's RNA and DNA. In an attempt, and it's only an attempt, to develop an immunity against and against whatever it is, whether whether it's the flu. So, or in this case with the coronavirus. So there is a totally different approach. And as I understand it, and actually I'd really like to share a link, if we may.
Yeah, we can.
To a YouTube talk that I listened to recently by a scientist who's actually involved in the production of vaccines, and he works for big pharma. So in no way is he anti-vax, but he is saying he's totally saying that this vaccination for this coronavirus is absolutely the wrong thing to do, and he explains it so well. But just very briefly, what he's saying is that it may indeed help us to develop a very specific immunity to a very specific virus, or
like a strain of the virus.
Strain.
Yeah.
But it's specific only to that.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely no relevance. And these viruses, they mutate so rapidly. That if we're taking a vaccination now that was developed specifically, let's say, for a virus a year ago, then it has no relevance to a modern strain. And okay, so that of itself doesn't mean that it's harmful, but where they are harmful is they actually disable the rest of our immune system. So what this, I can't remember his name, but what this scientist is saying, that actually he is predicting that people that are taking these RNA, DNA altering vaccinations now, that not so far down the line, they're going to get very sick. They're going to have no natural immunity to whatever it is, whether it be a flu bug or a new strain of coronavirus or whatever. And it, I don't think we should start getting into the statistics with the cases of coronaviruses and the deaths and everything like that. But I think, needless to say, that anyone with a healthy immune system has been fine with it. I know I had the original COVID-19 back in, I think it was about February last year, and I felt pretty rubbish for about 3 days, and I had a very dry cough. But my immune system dealt with it. Dealt with it. So I guess our message here is that just really think twice about taking a vaccination in the same context of looking for a quick, lazy, let's say, or short-term fix, and really consider investing time now into your immune system, which again, Kate and I and people like us can give you guidance if you need it, whether it's through your, through your diet and through other practices as well, to develop a natural immune system, because our immune systems really will fight off anything that nature naturally, and I use the word naturally, throws at us, and yeah, it's a big conversation, that, but yeah, I think that kind of is all I'm going to say for today anyway on that.
Yeah, and
we can go deeper into it later.
Yeah, and I'll leave some links when we upload the episode as well. And just to add to that, it's just in terms of, I guess, how how powerful our immune system is, and how it, as an organism, we are built to survive. So our immune system really does want us to thrive and feel well. And just to sort of add on, I guess I grew up in a similar time, Simon, where the vaccines were just things like, measles or mumps or rubella, and we were given a part of the pathogen and we developed immunity. And everyone had the chicken pox, and yep, you got sent to your friend's house to get it as well, and all of that. And just on that, the chickenpox virus, now it's been shown that if you have that as a child, as a woman, it actually is showing it stops you from, helps prevent breast cancer later on in life. So the virus has a health impact actually later on in life. So I feel like these viruses, we're supposed to get them. They're supposed to help our system in a way that it may seem like it's not great because we get sick for a short time, but there are other nuances to it that we don't fully understand or know.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually, that just kind of brings up a really important point that I just want to share very briefly, is what we often call being sick is actually getting well. It's literally detox symptoms, and these are not to be suppressed, and they're not to be feared. So things like a fever, coughing, vomiting, diarrhea, whatever it is, but breakouts of skin. You and I both work in detox, and we see people going through these all the time. And actually, what we call the flu is actually an annual detox, and it's a necessary part of the circadian rhythms of life. And by trying to prevent that, we're actually starting to interfere with our own health. And just as you said before, that the chickenpox actually prevents, or has a great benefit in relationship to breast cancer. You know, sometimes we're kind of meddling, as humans, we're meddling, and we're not seeing the bigger picture, you know. And I have an Apache friend, and I remember talking to him once, and I talked about being sick, which is in English is what we call vomiting, and the Apaches call that getting well, and it's the same. So when people vomit, they thought, "Ah, you're getting well now." So if we turn our perspective and look at what we call sickness as getting well,
I love that.
it really, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop talking now.
I'm going to use that one now, Simon. Okay, so next time we all feel unwell, we can say we're getting well instead, which is such a powerful belief to have.
Exactly.
And the only other bit before we wrap up, I just wanted to mention on the immune system, is I was, as a child growing up, I was quite ill a lot. I had a lot of chronic illness. So my immune system, I would say, was not fantastic when I was young. Had a lot of antibiotics and things like that. But just to say that the very start of my healing journey was 2011. I went to a detox retreat, and from that one retreat forward, I've never had antibiotics since then. And my immune system, with each year of depositing into my health account, has improved and improved and improved. And I have an incredibly strong immune system now, better than in my teens and my 20s. And so it's just to say that depositing into that health account adds up over time, and you can see vast improvements in your health and how you feel and the quality of your life. And then, you know, things like vaccines are not necessary, depending on what they are and how you want to look at what's going into your body and that kind of thing. But is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close out?
I won't be. I mean, there's so many things that I'd like to add, but I won't, because I think we've covered so much and it's a lot to take in already. But I think this is a great conversation that we can continue next time.
Thank you, Simon. So I'll wrap it up, and just to say that we'll pop a couple of links in the episode. So a link to the vaccine with the scientists you were mentioning, and then also, if it's helpful, I'll pop it in. If you do want to explore foods and organic foods and pesticides and that kind of thing, there's a Dirty Dozen and a Clean 15 that the EWG group post up every year. So if organic's not within your budget or what have you, you can choose from the Clean 15, and that means you can get them non-organic and they've got very low pesticides and residues on them. And then you can also see the ones that have the most if you did want to make some small changes. Yeah.
I have. I've got one thing I'd like to add as something to take away for people.
Go for it.
That something that we can do for our food that costs absolutely nothing, and we can start immediately, is to bless our food before we eat.
Yes, I do that. It's wonderful.
Okay. Yeah. And that will do so much to raise the vibration of the food.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to leave it with.
Thank you, Simon, and thanks everyone. And stay tuned. Next episode, it's likely we'll be exploring something a bit different. So talking a bit more about energy work and sound vibration and healing and that kind of thing. So that feels quite exciting. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Simon.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Bye-bye.